When planning your video, one of the most important elements is knowing exactly what you're going to say. Content is king. If you're not able to shoot with the nicest equipment or have the best audio, it's not ideal, but I would rather that you compromise on those things than what you're going to say. Whether you're creating a YouTube video or a promo for your business, preparation is key. So let's talk about how to write a video script. Each type of video requires a little bit of variation in exactly how much you actually need to script out what you're going to say. So let's start off by talking about how much or how little you actually need to write down before you start filming. Then I'll go over a couple of scripts I've actually written in the past and how you can write a script as well. And finally, I want to give you my favorite tip on how you can actually deliver your content without having to use a prompter. Let's talk about the difference between a promo and maybe a YouTube script. So when you're writing a script for a promo, oftentimes you want it to be an exact amount of time, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 60 seconds. So you definitely want to make those a lot tighter. Whereas when it comes to YouTube, it's a little bit more conversational and free form, and time isn't quite as important. You generally actually want to go a little bit longer form. So in that case, I wouldn't do a full-on script. I would probably want to just bullet out some ideas and then just speak conversationally. Also, when you only have 30 seconds in something like a promo, you definitely want to make sure you're hitting the points that you need to say. And so you want to keep it nice and tight. Whereas with YouTube, I can kind of go off on a tangent a little bit and come back and still make sure that I say all the things that I need to in order to answer the question that was asked. So when would you use a promo or a promotional video? This is something that you would use if you were creating an ad for, let's say, Facebook, or even like a traditional ad for television. You can also use it as a way to boost your subscribers on YouTube, putting an ad on other people's videos. Whereas if you've seen some of our other videos, we kind of talk a lot about how you can use a YouTube video as a marketing tool as well, but it's done organically in a completely different way. And you can actually check out this video over here to get a little bit of a better idea on how to use YouTube as a marketing tool. All right, let's actually take a look at a couple of script examples so you can get an idea of exactly how to lay out your script. This first script is from a promo I did back in 2017, as you can see. I did a 30-second version, a 15-second version, and then cut it down to a 10-second version. Now, this was for television, so it was really important that it was exactly 30 seconds or exactly 20 seconds. Now, one trick that I like to use when I'm creating a promo that needs to be a certain amount of time is I'll actually read through the script in the tempo that either I'm going to be speaking it in, if it's going to be me as the voiceover, or the talent that I know that is going to be scripting it, and just make sure that the timing is going to fill up that time. Now, another great trick that you can kind of use if you're like, well, what if they speak a little faster or a little bit slower? One thing you can do is add a graphic at the very end of the video and just give yourself like a little bit of a buffer of 3 to 7 seconds. So you make sure that people have enough time to read that end graphic. And then that way, if your talent goes over just slightly or under just slightly, it doesn't matter. But in general, you want to have the timing pretty close to exactly how it's going to be read so that you can meet that 30-second deadline and you're not going at 31 seconds or 29 seconds. With something like a television commercial or even sometimes with an ad, it's really important that you hit that timeline. Okay, so taking a look at this script here, you can see I put it in 2 different columns. So I have a video column, and this is going to be what I want to actually see on screen. And over here, I have an audio column, and this is what's going to be said. This is the side that I'm actually going to read through and time and make sure that it's going to hit that 30-second mark. Now, let's talk a little bit about a few different elements that you're going to want to have when you create a promo. So initially, you're going to have your main track or your A-roll, and that's going to be maybe your talent actually speaking and doing the lines on camera. This, what I'm doing now, would be considered A-roll. Then you're going to have your B-roll, which is going to be shots that you're going to cut to. If you're doing a promo that's about the mountains, you're cutting to beautiful scenery shots of people hiking in the mountains, and you're showing a visual of exactly what it is that you're talking about. It kind of goes along with that idea of show, not tell. In this first column, you might also put things like graphics that you want to pop up. As you can see, I've got this little ABC for Utah bug throughout, so I knew that that needed to be there the entire time. If you're producing the promo and you're not editing it, or even if you are editing it, Having this kind of information in your script is really helpful in the actual edit to know exactly what it's supposed to look like and when to cut to things and kind of give you an overall vision of how the promo is going to come together. I always say if you are producing, produce to edit. Don't ever just shoot a bunch of random stuff and kind of hope it comes together. If you're a really good editor, you can do that, but it's not very fun. It's a lot better if you conceptualize the idea beforehand and have a really good idea of exactly what it's going to look like before you ever get to the editing room. Okay, now let's take a look at a template I've created for how you can script out a YouTube video. All right, so if you take a look at this, this is just kind of an idea of how you can put your YouTube video together. So you have your intro, you cut to a little 3 to 5 second musical stinger, you have your content, and then you have your outro. Now, when it comes to YouTube, one of the biggest parts is your intro, and the other big part is your call to action. So, those are areas where I might script them out a little bit more so that I really make sure I hit those points, right? So with your intro, this is like the 10 seconds that you have to hook people. They're gonna watch that 10 seconds and they're gonna decide if they're gonna keep watching you or move on to another video. So I want to make sure that this part is really concise in exactly what I want to say so that I make sure that people aren't leaving my video. This is definitely not something that I want to wing right as I'm starting to film. This is a very important part of your video. I also want to have at least an idea of what my call to action is. And if you're not quite sure how to do a call to action or what that is, you can actually check out this video right here where I go over exactly how to do that. But you want to think about starting your video with the end in mind. So if you know exactly where you're going to go and how you're going to wrap up the video, it can help lead your viewer there throughout the video with little nuggets that you drop throughout. Okay, and then if you go down here, this is where I would actually fill this out. So I'd have my video title, which would be keyword researched, right? Then you go to your thumbnail title, and I suggest that maybe you come up with at least a general idea of a thumbnail title. That way when you're, taking your picture for your thumbnail, that you can actually have a general idea of what it's going to say. From there, you're going to write your intro. And when you write your intro, you want to think about kind of a pain point and what you're going to say that's going to solve that pain point. So a lot of times you're answering somebody's question on YouTube, right? So you have to think about why would they be asking that question? And then what is it that you can offer? What information can you give them that's going to help give them an answer to that question and solve their pain point? Next, you're going to go to content, and you can kind of see I've got like a point A, point B, point C, and a story. Now you can do as many points as you want, but in general, 3s are really great. It helps keep your videos at a good length. You want to be about 8 to 10 minutes. Sometimes you're going to have videos that are a little bit longer, and sometimes you're going to have videos that are a little bit shorter. But this part I wouldn't script out too much. So I would just put kind of a bullet of a general idea of something that I want to talk about, and then I'm just going to go freeform. So remember that you're the expert of this conversation. You're answering a question that you have a lot of knowledge about. So for example, in this, I just wrote down that I want to talk about the difference between writing a promo and writing a YouTube video script, and then I was going to show both. But all of this is just conversational. It's coming straight from my brain. I didn't write anything down. I just wrote down a few notes that just let me know, make sure you mention this and don't forget to mention that. I put story in here because sometimes it's really nice if you can add a personal story to a video. It's not always going to happen, but if you do have a general idea of how you can connect personally to what you're talking about, it can be really great for the viewer to get to know you better. And then we're going to go to your call to action. Now remember during your content portion that you're just giving value, value, value. You're answering their question. If you immediately jump into sales mode, people are going to be like, okay, never mind, I'm moving on. And so you want to just make sure you're giving really good content, and then you want to give them something to do. You want to give them a call to action, go to your website, get your free course, get your book, go to your event, subscribe, something like that that is going to help them know what to do next. Maybe it's just watch another video and stay on YouTube for a little while. Now, as a little bit of a bonus, I want to go over one of my favorite ways to be able to deliver content, whether you're doing a promo or a YouTube video, without having to use a prompter, because let's face it, it's pretty obvious when someone's using a prompter, and sometimes it's okay, right? Like, that a news anchor is using a prompter. They're pretty good at it. But in general, if somebody's reading something, you do get this feeling of not trusting them as much, right? So one thing that we do with our clients is we use a 2-camera system. So as you see, I have this shot here, and then I have this shot over here that I can cut to. Now, if you notice, Sometimes when you're watching a video, it may be something where I've got this camera here, and then I have this camera that's kind of on a side angle of my face, and people will use that. But what we like to do for YouTube is we want to make sure that you're really connecting with the audience. You're always making eye contact. We're having that one-on-one conversation. So we always cut to whichever camera that I'm looking at. We never do that sort of weird side angle shot. But let's say I'm getting through what I'm saying and I mess up. Well, instead of having to do a weird jump cut or a crop edit or something like that, all I have to do is just pause for a second, switch back to this camera, and then cut straight to that. One thing that's really great about this too is I can actually look down at my notes. So I've got, things written out. I can memorize or have an idea of what I want to say for a few sentences, and then I can pause. I can look back over at my notes, and then I can come back to the other camera, and it's a really great way to cut back and forth without it being really obvious that I made a mistake. Now, YouTube's pretty forgiving on those types of things. We've gotten pretty used to seeing sort of jump cuts and crop edits and things like that, but it does make for a little bit more of a professional look, and I think it looks really nice. So that's what we prefer to do, and then we never have to use a prompter because we can always just start over on the other camera. So whether you're going to script out a promo or a YouTube video, I hope this was super helpful. I actually have a free gift for you that you can get in the link in the description box below. So check that out. It's a free course on the top 10 things that you need to know before you start a YouTube channel. And again, it's in the description box below, so click on that link to get that for free. We're your video allies. You've got this, we've got your back, and we can't wait to see what you create.